Hello everyone. Hope you're doing great this week. It has been a extremely busy couple of weeks for me. I don't know who said that the industry was dying, but it's been crazy with the amount of product that we're shipping. The shops reporting back have said that it is a really great Black Friday. So that is a great sign that the industry is healthy, strong. I know not everybody is out there spending money right now. Totally get it. We are in the midst of a bit of a inflation, recession sort of deal. I don't really know what you would call it, but it seems like spending is up, which is a good sign. It seems like Europe is still a little flat, but other than that, I think we're going to be able to get out of it. And yeah, I'm pretty optimistic with the way that this year is ending up, that next year is going to be really good for blading. It is a difficult thing to predict. You know, we never had that COVID boom in the past where there were established brands and out of the blue, everything just kind of blew up. And if you look at different industries like BMX or skateboarding, they're kind of in the same boat where the brands didn't really know what to do. So they just ordered a ton of stuff, and shops just ordered a ton of stuff. And it ended up that they ordered too much stuff. So you'll see a lot of great deals right now at shops. I highly encourage, if you need anything, pick it up now. It's going to go up next year. And a lot of the products that you're going to get now, they're not going to change that much next year. Maybe a different colorway, maybe a slightly different graphic on it. But if you can get a great deal right now, find yourself a shop that you want to support. Get yourself some product, especially things like wheels that you know you're never gonna you're never gonna sit on wheels, right? You're always going to find a time to skate some wheels. Wheels wear out, so you definitely want to stock up on wheels. And if you find a good price on a boot, liners, frames, things like that, definitely a great time to buy. Again, our shops, you know, they do so much for us. We don't give them enough credit. There are so few shops here in the US. I know slightly different situation out in Europe, but definitely great to hear from some of them that they had a really good Black Friday, really good weekend, and I'm feeling pretty optimistic going into the end of the year. Anyway, I hope everything is good. Hope we're doing good. Looks like the stream is good, so let us get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Gear Talk episode 106. Gear Talk is the show that I do every other week where we talk about the geekier side of rollerblading. If you know the difference between the Rollerblade TRS and the Rollerblade TRS, then you've come to the right place. There are actually two of them. I don't know why they reused the name, but they reused the name. That's just the way that things are sometimes. I guess technically the first one was the Rollerblade TRS, and then it was the TRS Access. So it was Team Rollerblade Series was the initial one, and then TRS Access, and that was the Team Rollerblade Series Access. I guess that was the first UFS boot from Rollerblade, which was really great to see. If you know what the difference is between those two skates, and pop quiz, if you know which skate manufacturer made the original Rollerblade TRS, then you've come to the right place. Gear Talk is the show where I try to break down the weirdness of rollerblading, like 6mm versus 8mm, 165 versus 167. What do all those numbers mean, man? Well, this is where you can ask the stupid questions and I will give you the answers. And if I don't have the answers, somebody in the chat will figure it out for us and they will let you know the answers to the questions that you have. I love rollerblading, and I want to make sure that every time I go out and skate, I have the best setup for the sort of thing that I'm going to be skating. And that takes a lot of education. It takes a lot of experimentation to figure out which wheels work best for me, which boots work best for my feet, how I'm going to set up the durometer of the wheels for the surface that I'm going to be skating. All of these things come into play. You could just put whatever skates on and go out there and skate, but if you want the best ride imaginable, you're going to have to do a little bit of research. We do the research for you, and we'll tell you exactly what you need for that perfect setup for whatever you're out there to skate. Join us live in the chat room so that you can ask your questions. We do this every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube. We usually have about 100 or so people hanging out in the chat, and they are really smart, or at least they're really engaged. So if you've got questions, you will get answers. You might not get the right answer, but you will get answers. The more answers, the better when you've got weird questions that are hard to Google. So this is a good place to ask your questions. If you do have a question and you're not getting an answer from the chat room, tag Back to Blading. Back to Blading is my handle. If you tag Back to Blading, it'll show up in orange. I'll be able to see it. I always take time to answer questions from the live chat. If you're watching this in the future and you weren't able to join us live, absolutely understandable. Leave a comment in the video. I always read my comments. I make sure that every comment gets a little bit of attention, and I'll thumbs up it as soon as I read it so you know that I read it. If you've got a question, that is a great place to ask. Just put your question in the comment. If I don't know the answer, I'll do a little research, or at least I'll point you in a direction where you can find the information for yourself. But I'm pretty knowledgeable on this stuff. Love answering questions. And again, I love promoting rollerblading. I think it's a really great exercise, not only a physical exercise, but a mental exercise. Getting out there and skating a mini ramp, skate a trail, skate your school, skate around downtown. Anything you can do with wheels on your feet, that is a great activity. And the more fun you can have out there, the better. I try to help you have the most fun that you can. Dial in your setup, get your skates optimized for whatever sort of situation you're going to skate. If you've got questions, I would love to answer them. Before I get started, I always like to thank our friends over at thehelmetinitiative.org for helping us with our helmet giveaway. I had a really good talk with an old friend this week about the Helmet Initiative. It is something that I'm very passionate about. I had a friend, we both had a friend, who was skating in his front yard right in front of his driveway, and was skating with his kid and wasn't doing anything funny, just happened to hit a rock, slipped back, hit his head, ended up in a coma for a week. It is a serious thing, and it definitely can happen to you. Your head is super fragile, so you want to make sure that you protect it. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out there and wear a helmet. Helmets suck. I'm not going to lie. It feels so much better to skate without a helmet. But when you fall down, and you are going to fall down, when you fall down, if you have a helmet on your head, you are at lower risk of getting a serious brain injury. And that is the game changer. You know, I like to go ice skating. I like skating with my wife. She's just learning how to ice skate, and we go out and we do a public session every week, every Thursday. And I don't wear a helmet when I go ice skating. And I asked myself, you know, why don't I wear a helmet? Why don't more people wear helmets when they ice skate? It's the same sort of thing. You know, if you're skating, you should probably wear a helmet. I do wear a helmet when I play ice hockey. So, you know, you should wear a helmet. The difference is when you go out and ice skate, the surface of the ice, the rink, the sheet of ice is flat. You don't have to worry about anything. All you're doing is skating. Now, obviously, you could fall down, you could hit your head. I'm fine with that risk. When I'm out skating at a skate park, when I'm out skating down my street, there are cracks in the pavement. There are cracks that your wheels can get stuck in. There's dogs that could go running out at you. There's kids you might have to avoid. There's pebbles on the ground. There's so much that you could trip over. It is not worth the risk, in my opinion, to go inline skating without wearing a helmet. Just put the helmet on. It sucks, but you're going to thank me later if you fall down and hit your head. I've had a lot of people post about falling and hitting their head, and they had their helmet on, so thankfully they didn't get too hurt. It is the smallest bit of insurance that you can take out to keep yourself from the hospital. Now, a helmet is going to cost you about $50 or $60. They are not cheap. You can get a cheap helmet, but you're getting a cheap helmet, and that's not really worth your time. You know, save that $20 that you were going to spend on a helmet. Save up to get yourself a nice certified helmet. There are a bunch of brands that make certified helmets. Find one that you like the look of. They're usually going to run about $50. Now, I understand that that might be a lot of money for some people. Absolutely no shame in that. If you've got other financial situations that you need to take care of, if you've got food that you need to put on the table, if you're a student and you're trying to, you know, buy a few packs of, I don't know what you're eating nowadays. We used to eat Top Ramen, but if you're buying food for yourself and you don't want to spend $50 on a helmet, I totally get it. Let me help you. So I am very fortunate to be working with the helmetinitiative.org on a helmet giveaway. They've sent us a bunch of helmets and we're able to give them away to people like you who are in need of a helmet. Go to backtoblading.com/helmet. I will put it in the show notes. Backtoblading.com/helmet. That is where you go if you would like a helmet. There's no purchase necessary. You don't have to be in the US. All I need is your name and your email address so that I can contact you if you win. I will be taking 2 people at random. So usually I just do 1 person at random. But due to the generosity of the Metz family, I think they're based in Chicago. I know Jeff is based in Chicago. But great family that has supported me over the years. They wanted to donate some money to the Helmet Initiative. So I got a nice little PayPal amount, and I was able to finish off the year, all of 2022 Gear Talks, by giving away 2 sets of helmets. So not just 1 helmet, 2 helmets for every episode of Gear Talk. If you are interested in a helmet, backtoblading.com/helmet, that is the place to go. Put your name and information. I will get in contact with 2 of you at random and get you a helmet. Now, if you are in the US, we have 888 Sweat Savers, certified Sweat Savers. Those are the helmets that I wear. They are the best helmet that money can buy. You can spend a little bit more money, get something with MIPS that's going to do a little bit more for concussions and for all of that, serious brain injury, traumatic brain injury? I forget what it's called. You can spend more money and get a better helmet. But for the money, the best bang for your buck is around the $50, $60 price. And that's what I think the Certified Sweat Saver is. I like those helmets. That's what I wear. They're not super uncomfortable. I'm still wearing a helmet, but it's not super uncomfortable. If you're in the US, we have a bunch of sizes. I will get your size and I will send out a helmet. If you are outside of the US, let me know where you live and I will send you some money so that you can buy a helmet in your country. So if you aren't in the US, it can be a little expensive to mail a helmet out to the UK or up to Canada or out to Brazil. Absolutely no problem, though. You should still have access to a helmet. We will give you money instead of giving you a helmet. So that is the best way that we can get the most money out to people instead of spending money on shipping and import taxes and things like that. We're just going to give you money, buy a helmet from a shop nearby. Sometimes I've had a few people say that because of the amount of money, because the US dollar is fairly strong right now, because of the amount of money that I send over, they were able to get a helmet and a helmet for their friend. And that really makes me feel great. More people wearing helmets is a really great trend. Backtoblading.com/helmet. If you are interested in a helmet, we'll be giving away 2 helmets this week. Again, thanks to the helmetinitiative.org for your support, the Metz family for helping us out with our helmet giveaway, and our supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/backtoblading, who help us with covering some of the incidentals, the shipping charges, sending money over to people who don't live in the US, things like that. All of that money comes from our Patreon supporters. So again, thank you all for the support. Really appreciate it. Trying to get more helmets on people's heads. It is more important to me that I am protected than if I feel good and if I'm comfortable and if I look cool. And I hope that you feel the same way and you will wear a helmet when you're out there skating, because it is super important that you protect yourself. All right, before we get to the questions or the main event, I would like to share my current skate setup. So last Gear Talk, I shared with you my new Chris Farmer USD sways. Still skating those skates, made a few little tweaks. Want to share with you what I've done. Where are they tonight? Here they are. All right. So these are the Chris Farmer USD sways. This is the second USD sway that Chris has gotten. The first ones had a little bit of purple on them. This buckle is very loud, so let me buckle it in. The first ones had a little bit of purple on them. And I already had the Montres, so I didn't see the reason to get the other ones. But these are the Chris Farmer sways. So I bought them boot only. I put prime frames on. I've skated balance frames on these. They are UFS. They are a plastic shell. They are a USD sway. The sway is one of the most versatile, inexpensive shells that you can get. It is a nice wide shell, so if you have a fairly wide foot, you should be able to squeeze into this pretty well. It's got a really roomy toe, so it's really good for, again, awkward feet. I don't know a better way to say it, but if your feet don't fit into a Majestic 12, if your feet don't fit into an Aeon, then definitely give the Sway a chance. They are $220. I think I bought these boot only. You could probably get them a little bit cheaper, especially right around now with, you know, discounts that people are doing from shops. They're a really great skate. I like the boot a lot. The liner that came with it was the big Chris Farmer crown liners. These are the liners that came with them. And they felt a little just restrictive. You know, they were very bulky. The padding area is super thick. And for me, it fit really nicely in the shell, but it felt like I lost a lot of mobility in my foot. It felt like I was kind of wearing a cast. The toe, tongue especially, it's just this really thick tongue. And it just felt gross. Was not a fan. Add to that, when I was skating, there's this little plastic part that sits in front of the tongue that keeps the tongue from bending. Although it doesn't bend very well without this thing in here. I don't know what this thing does. While I was skating the first session, this thing fell out like 3 times. And the last time I couldn't find it. I spent like 5 minutes looking around the skate park. Everywhere. I could not find a dang thing. So I only have one in one foot, but I'm not skating these liners anymore. Definitely good liners for what they are, but they're not my style. I think if you're trying to upsize in a shell, so if you're skating like a Fifth Element or something like that, where you've got a little bit of weird spacing in your shell and you need to puff out your heels a little bit and around your ankles, this is probably a really good liner for that. It's got a very, again, thick heel area, thick cuff area, thick tongue. So if you're trying to puff it out, it's probably really good, but for me, not interested. I went with the Rosie's RL1. I think the RL1 is a really great liner. This is the first version of it. Let's see if I can grab the, oh, just take it out of here. This is the first version of it. They have the RL2 that's coming out now that you can get on the new Nils Janssens skate, as well as I think aftermarket. I don't know if it's just on the Nils. I can't open this up. There we go. So these are the RL1s. The sizing is a little funky because Rosie's is going to do funky sizing. But as soon as you figure out your size, they are a really competent liner. So it is a very thin, very dense foam, very similar to like an Intuition liner. They do have a neoprene toe, which I typically like. The neoprene toe gives your feet a little bit of room up in the toes, so you don't necessarily have to have the perfect fitting liner. You can have a liner that's a little bit shorter and your toes can poke out a little bit through this neoprene. It does have this interesting lacing sort of system, so I'm not really sure where these laces go, but there's a lace that goes down here, it kind of disappears. I don't know if it goes underneath your foot or if it's just cosmetic. It's a really interesting look. It kind of looks like the lacing goes over here, but I don't see any of the lacing over there. I see where it kind of ends here. Might just be cosmetic. But when you lace up the liner, it does definitely feel, oh, you know what it might do is this little thing, when you pull on this might be like a cinch back here and a cinch back there. That might be it. So it's secured down here and then it just pulls up. I honestly don't know. I don't think you get much wiggle around that. I think it's mostly cosmetic, but they fit my feet really nicely. They are a lace-up liner, which I prefer. However, these laces, especially with the Sway, it's hard to get my fingers in there. And it feels like there's just so many laces that it's hard to figure out which laces I'm supposed to be pulling. But I like these liners. I think they fit my feet really nicely. I might actually try the Intuitions next time to see if they make any difference. I do like the RL1s, but I already have Intuitions from the FRs, so why not give them a shot? In this shell, they fit pretty good. They were a little sloppy left and right. I felt like they didn't fill out the shell width-wise, and that is because this shell is a little bit wider than the Rosie's shells are. So potentially the Intuition is going to fill it out a little bit more. The sole plate is really nice. It is a redesigned sole plate for 2022. So this is a much more clean looking sole plate. It wraps the full circumference of the shell. So the old shells would stop right here and then the heel would kind of stick out. Actually, you can see them on the Montrez. Let me show you the Montrez. So if you look at the toe, you can see that it doesn't actually go all the way up to the front. It stops right here. In the back, it goes all the way around, but in the front, it stops right here. That's just a weird look. I actually didn't mind it. I think these sole plates skated really nicely, but I prefer the look of these sole plates. I think this is a much better looking sole plate. You can see the difference between the two. Toes especially. The toe makes a huge difference. So I was able to skate at Durham. I was able to skate Durham, which was a lot of fun. I skated, I actually didn't skate at the compound. I went out to the compound, but I didn't skate the compound, unfortunately. I was just too busy manning the booth, so I didn't have a lot of time to actually skate. But I was able to skate this last weekend. I built out a little quarter pipe here at the warehouse. It was raining, so I wasn't able to skate outside, but I was able to skate inside. Just skated my box. You know, it's nothing crazy, nothing scary or anything like that, but it's been a while since I've skated that box. And to me, skating a little box, you know, grind box with raised coping is probably the most fun that you're going to have. I love skating big skate parks. I love skating street spots, but just sessioning a little box. I'm a simple man. I don't need much. Be able to get all of my grinds on, see what this felt like, and I gotta say, these skates feel great. I'm gonna skate them for a little bit longer, see what I really think. Hopefully skate some skate park this weekend, go over to Marsh and see what these feel like. I am still skating 56 flat. So these are the 88A wheels. They are a little bit softer than some people might like, but for me, it is the perfect wheel. It's a really good profile. It's a flattish round profile. So you get a nice square kind of feeling when you're skating and you're doing lines or you're doing gaps or you're doing airs or anything like that. A lot of stability when you land. The split in the middle, absolutely no problem with any wheel bite or anything. 56 mil wheels are pretty small. And this profile gives you a little bit of slide. It's not as slidey as our 58 millimeter. That profile is very bullet. This is more of a flat rounded profile, but it definitely feels good when you're skating. And prime frames. I'm skating the Chris Farmer cores with the white prime walls. And yeah, I really like the prime frames. I didn't have any issues with any shock. Sometimes, especially skating a carbon boot, you can really feel the aluminum core. So I always recommend that you put a little bit of a squishy insole in there if you can, just to deaden some of that shock. Softer wheels also help. Again, 88A is a really good balance for that. But if you're skating 92A or heaven forbid 95A on core frames with some carbon boots like an Adapt, it's not going to end well for you. Definitely need a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of a cushion in there. Some sort of a shock absorber is the way to go. USD Sways. So yeah, absolutely like them. For the price, it's really hard to beat. You know, $220 boot only for a Chris Farmer version with a 45-degree strap and a crown liner. Come on. That's a hard bargain. I do think that they sell the team sways for a similar price, and those are ready to roll, which is amazing. If you're in the market for skates, those are definitely a good one to look into. The team sway, I think they have in black and white, and I think the pricing is about the same, $230 or something like that complete. I don't know off the top of my head, but there's a really, really great skate. Stock liners might not be great. You know, I always recommend skate the skate stock, see what they feel like. You can make a lot of tweaks afterwards, but you know, for the money, it's going to be really hard to beat. All right, let's take some questions. Let's see if there's anybody out there asking questions. If you have a question, please tag me in the chat. If you're watching in the future, make sure that you leave a question as a comment on the video, but if you're watching live, I'm going to scroll to the top and see if there's any questions that I can answer. There's a few, which is great. Make sure that you tag Back to Blading. They show up in orange so that I can see them. It's a really nice way for me to keep track. When the chat is a little crazy, it's a little more difficult for me to keep up, but this is a pretty good way for me to see. All right, True 27 skate law. I got the 56s flat on my Creates. Looking forward to the next session. Thanks again. The Creates with 56s are a really good setup. Thanks for the support, of course. I think you're really going to like them. I really like the 56s. I think 56 is it's an old size, but it's a really standard, like tried and true size. If you look at any of these old skates that I have on the wall, like a lot of them came with 56 mil wheels. That's just a testament to what that size was back in the days. Now, we've done a lot to make 60 millimeter kind of the standard. 60 millimeter is like table stakes now. If you're designing a frame, you need to have 60 millimeter flat. But honestly, 60 millimeter flat doesn't feel like... It's a little bit faster than 58, but it's not that much faster, and you lose so much with that gap in the middle. I think 58 is probably the right balance. 56, you get a little bit more acceleration. 60, you get a little bit more coast. I think 58, right in the middle, is where I would like to be. So 58 millimeter wheels are great. Creates, though, I think 56 is the way to go. You know, Create has a pretty nice split, but it's got a fairly deep groove. So if you go with a 58, it might be a little big. 56 is definitely the way to go. Let me know how you skate. If you're just skating at the compound, try some of the ledges and rails too to see how they hold up. Don't just skate the mini. Thanks again, and good seeing you a couple weeks ago at the event. Eddie Effany, Lawrence, decided on what you will name the new boot company and the new boot yet? Yes, actually we decided this week, actually today. We had a few names that we were playing around with, and we made it happen. So we've got a few logo ideas that we're working on. We've got the name, registered domain names, things like that. So it is full steam ahead. A quick update on the boot project. We had the V1 boot that I brought out to the compound for the Grinds Giving event. That was a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody. And I was able to get some feedback from people. I had a 3D printed sample of our size 42 shell with our stock liner. And I asked people, if you've got a size 42, come on up to the booth and put your foot in there and see what you think. And I had about a dozen people give me feedback, which was really helpful. We isolated a couple pain points where there were little pressure areas around the toe. So if you look at the sways, so this area up here was the culprit. Top of the lacing area and top of the toes. So we updated our drawings and we had them raise this area by 3 millimeters. So we kept the line the same, but this area around the first couple of lacing and around the toe, we've raised it up a little bit, 3 millimeters, which means that it will fit more feet. We got a new sample, the V2 sample, and I printed it out and I sent it out to the team to try on, and they loved it. It fit perfectly, except it was a little short. So no pressure points around the top, no pressure points around the heel or the sides, but it needed to be pushed out about 3 millimeters. So that is where we're at now. We have our V3. We're a little behind schedule. Hopefully they'll be able to speed up the mold development, because they were supposed to start the mold first week of December. Probably not going to happen. But as soon as I get that V3, I will try out the sizing again, make sure that it fits perfectly, and then we will confirm the mold for the 42 and get that production started so they can start the mold, and then we'll have an actual skatable 42, which is huge. Next step, so now that we've dialed in the look and feel of things, we're going to start working on the sole plates. So it's important that the boot sizing and the fit and finish are secured before we start designing the sole plates. We know what the sole plate's going to look like, and we've got some of the dimensions there, but we need to make sure that the sole plate looks good with the final boot. So all of the little geometry and the lines and the flow, It all kind of needs to flow together. So that's what we were waiting on. As soon as this V3 is done, I'm going to finish up the sole plate. We're going to 3D print some sole plates so that by the time we get the 42 boots, we'll have 3D printed sole plates that we can test with the actual molded boots and cuffs, boots and cuffs at the same time. So that's going to be a really big deal. We'll have liner samples with that. We'll have all of the stuff that we'll be able to actually skate the boots. I was hoping that we'd have that end of December. Realistically, it's going to be probably beginning of January. But fingers crossed everything goes smoothly with the V3. We should keep moving. And then, so once the V3 is confirmed and I start working on these sole plates, I'll do the same for the other sizes. So we're going to have 4 total shells at launch, which is a little overwhelming. But we're going to try to cover as many feet as possible. Definitely our 42, our 44. I ride the 44, so I need to make sure that that one is dialed in for me. And then the 40, we've got some team riders that are a size 40. So we'll make sure that they fit those feet, and then we'll do one that's a little bit bigger up to the 46 so that it will be a little bit bigger for bigger feet. I think up to a size 12, I think. In the future, you know, depending on demand and depending on how well this project goes, we hope to do a smaller shell and a bigger shell, and then maybe fill in some shells where there are requests for shells. But remember, whenever we do a shell, it's not just doing a shell. We got to do the shell, we got to do the other side shell, and we got to do the sole plates, and we got to do the other side sole plates. So it is an expensive thing to do an additional shell size. So we've got to figure out where that breaking point is, what's worth investing in if we're actually going to sell enough skates of that size to justify the expense. A lot of things that I'm thinking about, a little worried, a little nervous, but you know, I've been thinking about doing this boot project for so many years. I've been talking about so many boots. I've got to do it and bring out a boot and just say, you know what, this is what I think is the perfect boot. You know, put my money where my mouth is, that sort of thing. Anyway, long story short, yes, we do have a name. Super excited. It works really well. We got a great story around the name. We're working on the logos, and you should hear more probably in January, maybe February. But feel free to ask questions. I might slip up and say something. Thanks again for the support, though. Supa Yosef, will you be at Bitter Cold? Yes, very, very looking forward to going to Bitter Cold. So I did get a ticket to Winter Clash. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go over there. It's a fairly expensive flight, and for me, you know, it's a full day going over there, plus a few days being there, plus a full day coming back. I just don't know that I can justify that, especially being away from the family and away from work and all that. Bitter Cold is a weekend, so I'll be driving up there from North Carolina. It is like a 10-hour drive, so I'll probably leave bright and early on Friday, get up there Friday evening. I think the event is Saturday, and then I'll drive back down on Sunday. I might push it one day so that I'm not driving right after the event and right before the event. So maybe I'll add an extra day, and you know, if not work from the road, I'll just stop in and, you know, take the day off and then be able to hang out with some of the locals. But yes, I will be at Bitter Cold. I'm really looking forward to it. We will have a booth, and hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll have the new skates out there. So that will be the first public unveiling of the skates. So if you are able to come out to Bitter Cold, it will be a great time. It is the last Bitter Cold event that they are going to be doing. So I don't know, you know, for a fact, but that is what I've been told. And I wanted to make sure that I was there, not only just to meet everybody, but to really just support this event, you know, put money into it, because it is one of those high-level, pro-level events that I keep talking about that we need to have more of. And although they are going away, it's important that we showcase what rollerblading can be. And at Modern Skate Park, there's a lot of big obstacles that I think these pros are going to make look really impressive. I'm a huge fan of high caliber, high level skating, especially being a fairly average skater myself. Seeing people do tricks that I can kind of do on obstacles that I can't even touch, that is a huge thrill to me. So very much looking forward to it. If you are going to be there, make sure that you come by the booth and say, hey, would love to meet you. And yeah, I love meeting people, so definitely looking forward to it. I think it's in February. Bitter Cold's Instagram and website have been updated, so definitely try to get some more information there if you need it. Keep on blading. Is it me, or do you not have any 64mm wheels on offer? That's the size I need for my solar frames. Unfortunately, we do not. I have some on order. They are taking a while to get here, though. If you're interested in the same urethane, though, the Mushroom Blading guys just released this 65mm tapes. They are a 6590. They are available now. We actually have them in stock. They are not black, they are not white, they are an olive green, which is the color that Mushroom Blading uses for all of their urethane, but it is a high quality urethane. So definitely recommended if you're looking for a 65mm wheel. Also, I will add, our old 65mm wheels were actually 64mm. Now, I didn't know that until somebody sent me a picture and said, hey, these don't fit the way that I expect them to fit. I said, what do you mean? And showed me a picture of a wheel with calipers, and it was actually 64mm. So very embarrassed because I'm a very detail-oriented guy, and I said, well, shoot, that's not cool. Like, I put 65mm on the wheel, and it was actually 64mm. I emailed the factory and I said, hey, just so that you know, these are 64mm. And they say, well, actually, we changed the molds this year, and they are now 65. So the 50/50 65mm wheels are actually 64. The Mushroom Blading 65mm wheels that we just released are actually 65. It is a brand new profile, although it looks like the old profile, but it is 65mm. So that is something new. We do have some 6590s in production now. They should be here end of December, but realistically, it's more like January. We'll see when we can get them here. It's hard with shipping around the holidays, but they're in production. They should be done soon. And yeah, thanks for the support. They are a great wheel. They don't sell super well, so I don't bring them in all the time. But when I do bring them in, I'll let you know. Mason Colby, where did you get your t-shirt? Yes, this is the Supernatural t-shirt, VG5. Champion on the cover. I think Champion is on the cover. At least he had a profile, all the unities. I don't remember where I got it. I think it was from the Video Groove website. It was years ago, and I think my friend Steve Johns sent it to me. He was doing the t-shirts for Dave Payne. So he did a Video Groove shirt that I have, and then this Supernatural shirt that I have. I don't know that they still make them. You might want to reach out to Video Groove on the Instagram. They might have some in stock. If not, you might want to ask if they can open them up again. I absolutely love this shirt. VG5, VG4, VG3, those were kind of my, like, when I was heavy into skating. So it really brings back a lot of memories. And whenever I'm talking about older stuff on this show, I always like to wear older shirts, and this is my favorite one. Good luck. I hope you can find it. It's a great shirt. True 27 Skeet, where is Sam? I don't know. Sam Hain? I don't know. He's not here. I don't have anybody in the room this time. I promise you. Ravenous Pathogen, did you see the latest Mushroom vid where Joey is talking to Ben Magaziner? I haven't watched it yet. I am a Patreon supporter, so I saw it come in months ago, but I didn't watch it, and then it came up, and it was on the YouTube now. I haven't watched it yet. I hear it's really good, though. Definitely check it out. Anything that Mushroom Blading does, I try to watch, but I've got a queue fairly long, and I don't have enough time in the world. All right, Mr. Darren 25, so where do you stand on the skinny versus baggy pants debate? I noticed you were wearing baggier than normal pants in your last video. Yes, I should do a pants episode. I always wear knee pads, so I need to make sure that my pants are baggy enough that they can fit my knee pads and still allow me to flex. I have I love wearing jeans when I skate, and I wear the jeans with a little bit of spandex that allows them to stretch a little bit. I have a friend, Jeremy, who skates in cargos, and he sent them, they're like tactical cargo pants. He sent me a link and he said, you know what, you should try these. So I bought some. And they're a little more baggy than I like. They feel kind of like my body is swimming in there, but I might stick with them. They are, I'll see if I can find a link, and I'll put a link on the Instagram, I think, if I can remember. They are, I think I got them from Zoomies, so they might be skateboarder pants. I don't know. I mean, we're cool with skateboarders now, I guess, so who cares? But they are, yes, tactical, black tactical pants. I don't know who makes them, but I'll do a jeans episode, a pants episode in the future. I think it'll be funny. But yes, they are baggy. Thank you for noticing. They feel a little weird, but they fit really nicely. They feel really light and I can move really well, so maybe it's fine. I definitely don't like skinny jeans though. I think skinny jeans, even with spandex in them, it's a little too restrictive. I've skated skinny jeans, like I usually wear skinny jeans. So, well, not skinny jeans, but like I wear Levi's 511s. And they're not a skinny jean, but they're a slim jean. And when I'm skating in those, it feels restrictive. So you need to be able to have a jean that's flexible enough that you don't feel restrictive. In my usual jeans, I wear 569s, which are a baggier Levi's jean that has spandex in it that lets you stretch. But yeah, these new cargo pants are a little bit more, they don't stretch or anything, they're just big. So it's taking a little adjustment. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, but definitely a little bit more baggy is the way to go. Less skinny, that's the way to go. Great question though. Thanks for noticing. I hope I looked good. All right, let's see. I've got a bunch of questions and I'm having a hard time tracking, but Chris G, any chance you guys make glass-filled nylon of the T60R frames? Those frames are amazing. Yes, so the T60Rs are Justin Thursday's design. They are a great frame. You can get them from the Core Market or from Justin's website. They are designed for skating flat. It is a slight rocker, a 1mm rocker with a 60mm wheel. Really great frame. Any chance we'd make a mold out of it? It's expensive. I mean, you'd have to see how many you could sell. Molds are like 10 grand for the sizes that we would need, and that's a little expensive. I would prefer to just keep printing them. I think they skate pretty well, but I definitely feel that there's a demand for a flat molded frame for the Prime frames. We are listening. We are trying. I got a lot of projects going on right now, but it is on my list to do something. Maybe with Justin, maybe not, but definitely a flat frame is in the works. All right, let's get started. It is 9:42. My laptop is not charging, so let me plug it in so that it's charging. Oh, why isn't it charging? Could be a short show if it doesn't charge. Uh-oh. It's weird the other one's working. Nope, maybe this extension cord isn't working. Let me plug it in over here. Uh-oh, looks like this cable's busted. All right, let me go get a cable. Hold on. Back. I noticed. Did that just work? Hello, yes. I'm glad I noticed. I think when Grant was here, it didn't work as well. I don't know why. Maybe this power adapter isn't working. Let's see if this one works. Oh, it might be my power adapter. Uh-oh. Why wouldn't it charge? Uh-oh. Not good. Try another USB port. Not charging either. All right, maybe it's this adapter. I will find another adapter. I'll be right back. All right, I am back. I have a new cable. I have another adapter. Let's hope this works. Otherwise, I'm going to have to talk very quickly. Oh no, it's not working either. What is going on? Did my outlets are fine. How can this not be plugging in? Oh no. That's horrible. I wonder if something's wrong with my laptop. Yeah, this cable doesn't work either. Oh no. Well, I guess I'll talk quickly. I've got, what do I have left on my, I'm at 13%. I'm at 13% on the battery. So let's talk quickly, I guess. I don't know why it's not charging. Do I have, maybe I can plug it in over here. Let me try this. None of it works. Uh-oh. None of my ports are working. Not good. Something's funky with my laptop. All right, well, I guess I'll talk quickly. And if the feed cuts out, then the feed cuts out. That's the way it is. Life in the big city. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the most important skates in the history of aggressive inline skating. So these are, preface all of this with me saying that this is my list. You might have difference of opinions on which skates are important to you. For me, these are the most important skates. These are the skates that made the biggest impact on skating. It might not be the individual model, but the stuff that you got out of each of these skates made a huge impact to the future of skating. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight. I've got 5 skates that I feel fit that model, and I wanted to share each of them. They are not skates that I put on the wall. You know, the wall is for active skates. These are skates that are no longer made. None of these are made anymore. Yeah, none of these are made anymore, but they are skates that I put, you know, on my other wall, or I put in a storage box so they don't get damaged. I actually just got a pair of these skates this week from a friend. So there are 5 great skates that I feel like tell the story of aggressive inline skating. It made a huge impact to where skating is and what the future of skating should have been, and you know, brought us to 2022, where you can see a lot of the influence of these skates in current skate design. So without further ado, let's get started. These are in chronological order, so it's not in order of impact. There's not like a 1 through 5 of the most impactful skates, but I'm going to start from the beginning and try to do them in order. I might get them off by a few years, but I will do my best. So the first skate, and maybe the most important skate, the one that started it all, this is the Rollerblade Lightning TRS. So this was sent to me by my friend Sean Michelson. He knew that I love these skates. I used to have a pair of these skates, mint condition, and they crumbled. They were sitting in a garage, and the elements were not kind to them, and it just ended up warping the plastic, and it was horrible. But these were my first aggressive skates. So I skated some Zetra 303s back in the days. These were the upgrade. These were the ones that people were skating on all the videos. So if you look at the Hoax, if you look at Vertical Access, these were the skates that they were using. Back in those days, Rollerblade was just a company that made inline skates. They didn't do aggressive skating or anything. Aggressive skating wasn't a thing. So the aggressive skaters out there, the rollerbladers, They were doing dancing, they were jumping stairs, they were skating half pipes. They were trying to figure out a way to push skating to the next level. And this was, at the time, the best skate for what they did. Not only did it have a full plastic shell, it had a very strong frame. It came flat 70 millimeter wheels, I think, maybe 72s. But it also had a cuff that moved and a buckle. And it's silly to think that, oh, it had a buckle, but it had a buckle. So my Zetra 303s, they laced around. They had a cuff. I don't know that the cuff moved, but they laced around with these two little notches on the side of the cuff. And this having a buckle made it much more supportive, let you do much bigger tricks. And ultimately, this was the skate that started it all. So you'll see people back in the day skating these. They would either skate small wheels and they would grind in the middle, or they would put the rollerblade wrenches in here, the little wrenches that would come with this. The reason why it came with a wrench, if you look at these axles, they used a hex key. That hex key is how you would tighten or loosen your axles. Very, very interesting. So no Allen keys, this was all a hex key. Anyway, they would use that hex key. It was a wrench, and they would put it between the two wheels, wheel 2 and wheel 3, and that is how they would grind. Keep your frame from breaking, basically. This boot is still kind of around. So if you over the years, Rollerblade moved away from using this shell. They started using the Dirk. They started, the TRS Access and the Solo. So they've done a few different shells. And then in their fitness lines, they've gone to more of a soft boot style. But this shell design, you can see on the Rosie's Majestic 12. So this is the Grant Hazelton Majestic 12, and if you compare this shell with this shell, it is the same shell. And back in the days, Rosie's actually made these skates. Funny enough, you can see the little square box where they put Rollerblade. They just put Rosie's. And these were the manufacturer of the Rollerblade skates. If you look at the bottom, these were made in Italy. Kind of hard to see, but made in Italy. So these were actually made at the Rosie's factory. Cool tip. Anyway, so those are the Rollerblade TRS. They did come out with a Rollerblade TRS Access, which was their first UFS boot, but that is a completely different story altogether. Rollerblade TRS then led to the Chris Edwards Tarmac CE skate, which was the first aggressive skate. Technically, it was a TRS with a 45-degree strap, small wheels, and it came with a grind plate. So it wasn't a new skate, but it was a aggressive design skate. So it was really, really early on with aggressive designs, but the TRS definitely got them started. All right, next on the list, in 1998-ish, K2 released the Fatty. So these are the Fatty Pros. K2 was one of the bigger companies back in the days. They made a ton of skates. They were primarily a ski and snowboard company. They made a ton of skates. This was a sample of the first K2 Fatty Pro. So the Fatties came out 98 or so, maybe 97, 98. And they were a black with a charcoal area. These are the Fatty Pros, so they were an upgraded version. They came with Senate wheels, I think. They came with 50/50 grind plates. Our first OEM, which is pretty cool. These were actually Andy Cruz's skates. These were samples that Andy was given. And these were the Fatty Pros. So they had the red, they came with Senate wheels, they came with 50/50 grind plates. The K2 Fatty was the first real purpose-built aggressive skate that didn't just have a plastic shell. This was a fully soft boot technology. So it had a flat sole, it had a split with a built-in H-block that was removable. You could replace this H-block, and they patented it so that nobody else could make a replacement H-block, and they started suing everybody. because they didn't want anybody to make their H-Box jerks, but that is what it is. Very low profile frame. Probably not ideal for skating nowadays, but definitely was the skate of the days. Best thing about the K2 Fatties, this backslide. So you can see how gnarly this Royale groove was that Andy was using. The K2 Fatty, because when you did Royales, instead of getting on the sole plate back here, the backslide plate, you actually got on your boot. So you can see this wear here. That's where he was grinding. So if you wanted to backslide a kinked rail, you could do that because you were balancing on this plastic like leather area. It would slow you down. You'd be able to grab and just coast your way down a rail. Very interesting. K2 also, when you were skating them, the heel area was such a low forward lean. It felt like you were kind of leaning back a bit when you were skating them, which made it feel like you were skating faster, but it definitely, whenever you get somebody who's not used to a K2 Fatty, you put they put the K2 Fatty on their feet, they would instantly fall backwards. It was always fun to watch. Lots of great skaters skated K2s though. Really, really amazing skate. They made a few different skates after this. They made the Style Points Bob. They made the 250cc. Eventually, they converted to a UFS version of this boot, which I have one of up here. This is the last K2 Fatty that they made. I think this was from 2003. Very similar design, but it's different, obviously. But it is UFS. So you could take off this frame and you can replace it with whatever frame you want. They finally fixed this backslide area, this plastic up here, so it wouldn't wear on the boot. Really amazing to see the progression of the K2 Fatty. K2 doesn't really make skates anymore. They make recreational. They don't do aggressive. Not really interested in our sport, but the impact that the K2 Fatty made was immeasurable, mostly because it was an amazing skate and it was available everywhere. So anywhere you could buy K2 skis, you could buy K2 skates. And that meant that we had so much distribution. You could go into any big box store and you could find yourself a pair of K2 Fatties. So when people come back to blading, they typically say, I used to skate Fatties, what do I get now? That is a huge lasting impression that the K2 Fatty had. And there isn't really a good answer. You can give them some carbon freeze. That's probably the best comparable as a soft boot. But yeah, the K2 Fatty definitely was a unique space in our skating history. All right, going through the list, next thing to come out was the USD Throne. So this is probably the most impactful skate for aggressive. And I'm not saying that it was the best skate. It definitely wasn't the best skate. What the USD Throne did was it introduced pro model skates, replaceable parts, customizable parts. You could break down this skate and you could swap out the tumor plate, you could swap out the frames, you could swap out the cuffs, you could swap out every part of this skate and make it your own. Now, when the first USD Throne came out, it was just a standard plastic shell boot. It had a really bad sole plate. It had a really bad frame. And then they started working with Arlo and Shane Coburn to come out with a real USD. They converted from upside down to USD, and they came out with the USD Throne. And that is when they had the killer team with John Julio and Josh Petty and Champion and Dustin and Kevin and like all of the big hammer skaters back in the days. The best of the best would skate for USD. And you would find so many pairs of USD Thrones out there. Everybody was skating USD Thrones. They literally took over the market at that time. Now, these are very special USD Thrones. These were actually owned by Brian Shima. And a viewer sent these to me a few years ago. And he was growing up with Brian, and he skated with Brian, and Brian gave them to him. These were the first samples that Brian ever had, and they were the first 50-50 frames that Brian ever skated. So these are machined UHMW 50-50 frames. So back in the days, we didn't have UFS. we had to make base plates and frames that would attach to these boots. And that was a huge deal. 50/50 frames for this USD Throne were everywhere. Different colors, different what we call the juice plate. So this juice system, this heel plate is UHMW as well. It's machined out of UHMW. You can see the back, there's a little bit of a angle where it sits out and it creates a flat sole. Those were things that weren't being done back in those days. Now eventually that was really expensive, so they came out with a tumor plate. The tumor plate just sat on top of the base plate. So you'd have this big sole plate and then you'd have a 50/50 frame that you would pop on the bottom. Or you could get adapters for Senate frames and 50/50 frames, kind of standard for all of the USD skates. Then they came out with UFS, and we started seeing Kaiser frames on the USD Thrones. They came out with the Cyrus and the UFS Thrones. This UFS Throne, this USD Throne is now being used for the Messmer boot. So if you look at Messmers, these are the Messmer boots. You can see the same lines. It's the same shell. It's just been updated so that it can accommodate a flat sole plate versus a two-part sole plate. And it's UFS versus the 50/50 system back in the days. So USD Thrones, they didn't last for too long, maybe 4 or 5 years they were making UFS Thrones, or USD Thrones, but the impact that this skate had on what was possible out there, it really gave 50/50 the life that it had. It made people aware of aftermarket frames. You didn't just buy a skate anymore. You bought a boot and different frames and different cuffs and different sole plates. It was a thing. There was a modular system. And I think the USD Throne was the skate to push in that component system in the industry. A few years later, in 2001, the rise of 50/50 frames was the demise of 50/50 frames. So as 50/50 was growing, other companies said, hey, you know what? We want to get in on this replaceable frame system thing. It was only 50/50 making those replaceable frames. Senate was making them, but they were not nearly as popular as 50/50. So one of the bigger companies of the time was Salomon. They came out with a skate that was a flat boot instead of a raised heel. So if you look at the USD Thrones, you see it as a raised heel. So this part is flat up here and it's higher back here. Versus the Salomon, which was completely flat. And if you tried to make an adapter for our frames for a Salomon, it wouldn't work super well. You'd have to have a really high base plate in the front and no base plate in the back to balance it out and make a flat sole. So rather than work with us on an adapter plate, Salomon wanted to do a completely new system. And that's what they came up with UFS.